right, guys, welcome in. In this one, I'm joined by Kevin from Buffalo Jets fan. Kevin, what's going on, dude?
Every time it cracks me up that Buffalo Jets fan is announced as like a corporation and I'm the president.
Kevin from the Buffalo Jets fan.
Right. I'm good, man. I appreciate you having me on. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, dude. So we were talking just like for 2 minutes, like right before right before I hit record, how we won the offseason again.
Yeah, I mean, this one was definitely a little bit more of a pragmatic offseason. It wasn't as flashy as obviously like headliners like Aaron Rodgers, Hassan Reddick, Tyron Smith. Just more of it seems like from an ownership perspective, the offseason approach was, hey, you know, we're going to give you as many kind of 10, $12 million contract veterans as you need to get this roster competitive. And if you do that, and then we'll see where we're at next year. They didn't really do anything that impacted 2027 a lot because they have so much dead money this year and it's a lot of 1 year deals. So if you look ahead to 2027, they're going to be really high in cap space again. And they didn't really do anything in terms of getting a quarterback to trade picks for one. They got Geno on the cheap. So I think it was a good balance of getting some real players at spots that desperately needed upgrades to try and be competitive while also understanding that it's still a rebuilding process and not, borrowing from tomorrow too much. So I thought it was a solid approach overall.
So if you had to give it a grade, Jets free agency pickups, we'll throw Minka Fitzpatrick in the mix as well, even though that was a trade. What, objectively speaking, would you give it?
Probably a B plus. There's
Cool.
nothing that they
Same.
did that I think was uh, terrible. I mean, there was a couple of contracts I wish they would have been in on, but you never know if those guys would have come here. Like you see Devin Lloyd getting the Sherwood contract, or Leo Chenal getting $8 million a year, or some of the safeties. But I think the deal with Fitzpatrick was, the Jets probably had a sense of what the likelihood of the guys like Bryant were to sign with them. So they figured, hey, let's just get it done morning of free agency and get that big hole checked off. Obviously, as familiarity with the coaching staff with Duker coming over from Miami. So they didn't really make a single move that I was like, wow, I don't really like that, because how bad can 1 year deals really be for the most part?
Yeah, that's another underrated thing about this whole offseason. By the way, real quick, am I lagging? Or am I
You're good to
good?
me.
Okay, cool. Yeah, keep getting like the bad Wi-Fi warning thing popping up. Um, but there's a lot of fans that are kind of looking at it like, oh, we didn't go after the Alec Pierces, we didn't land the Devin Lloyds, some of the top tier free agency names. Um, but one kind of like underrated storyline, I feel like, for if you almost want to take a look at it like from the pessimistic angle, which is, let's just say Aaron Glenn, Geno Smith, it doesn't work out. We lose a bunch of games and we're starting fresh in 2027. Darren Muji didn't handcuff this team with massive deals that maybe a new head coach is going to have to deal with in 2027, the following year. So it feels like a lot of really good short-term acquisitions. We've, in my personal opinion, raised the floor of the team. We kind of sealed the cracks in with the rest of the roster, getting a couple of rotational edge rushers, massively upgrading the safety position, as well as upgrading quarterback for what, like $3 million. So I think, yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. B plus for me as far as the overall grade. What was your favorite acquisition?
I honestly, I really thought it wasn't the flashiest, but I like the two depth moves they made in the secondary with Belton and Deshaun Wright. Because particularly Wright, I think getting Wright for $4 million. I don't know if he needs to get a new agent or whatever. I was just kind of shocked when he was able to be had for that figure. Obviously, he's a little bit more boomer busty. It seems like talking to Bears fans, like he'll give up some plays, but he also had 5 interceptions. And I think that he's a player where you're looking at the future of this cornerback room and Brandon Stevens' money becoming not guaranteed. Like, is he a player that gets re-signed? And then it's him and AZ Thomas moving forward. And then Belton, just another solid pro to where the Jets they're clearly not just going to hand AZ Thomas and Malachi Moore starting roles. Now, you would hope as second year, third, and fourth round picks, particularly Malachi Moore being a bit of an older player, that they would win the jobs. I think that's the Jets' hope, is that the guys who are on rookie deals win those jobs, and the other players are, well paid backups and special teamers, and that's fine to have depth. But is just a little bit of like they weren't being lazy, like to go that extra step and just to make sure some of those things were checked off and fortify that they're going to have competition instead of just handing it to the rookies. Because I think there's been some spots in the secondary the past few years where guys were just given jobs that, I mean, it's like Tony Adams, like for an entire presidential administration was just assumed he was going to be a starter. Now he's back there with Bob Saleh in Tennessee. So I really like those moves. I have no idea who's going to win, how it's going to shake out in the secondary, but it gives them depth, it gives them options, and Wright might be a guy who sticks around.
Definitely, man. Yeah, Nashawn Wright, when that contract came out, because like when I first read the notification and just kind of doing all the research on free agent fits and whatnot beforehand, I mean, his projection was over 40 million on a multi-year
Yeah.
deal. I was thinking, oh wow, like this is, going to be right up there with the Minka Fitzpatrick deal, somewhere in that range. And I continue reading through the tweet, and it was like there's like 1 year up to 5.5. I'm like, what?
Mhm.
Like, there's not there was not a better offer on the table for Wright and free agency. Kind of strange, but he's a really interesting one because of his body type, right? It's 6'4", 200 pounds. I mean, the guy, I mean, the corners of that size don't grow on trees. They're rare. And so I wonder, the Jets currently have 5 coaches on their defensive staff, including Aaron Glenn, with DB backgrounds. I wonder if they're looking at Wright saying, hey, we can bring him in, cheap 1 year deal. I mean, his body type, maybe working with us in our system, maybe we can really get hopefully similar production in the INT takeaway category. But with all these additions, all this money spent, all these upgrades all over the place, how do you think it really impacts the draft to 16 and then kind of just maybe second round as a whole?
I don't think they did anything that would impact two, and I didn't unless I mean I don't even know if there was anything they could really do to impact pick two because I think pick two is going to be what they believe to be a game wrecking front seven player. Right. So maybe if they went out there and they got like Jalen Phillips and they traded for like Jonathan Grenard or something crazy like that, where they really over invested at edge rusher. But nothing too much at pick two. I think it kind of gives them the options. I think it kind of really solidifies that they could go with either Reese, Bailey. In my opinion, Bain could still be an option because they could kind of lean into building that physical front with Bain, who just fits in like nastily with Sweat and Kingsley and Phillips. And you're just going to say, you know what, we're going to have an identity of we're not going to be fun to play. You're not going to run the ball on us. Or you could say, hey, you know what, since we have all of these guys who are really good run defenders, now we're willing to live with the trade-off of Bailey's, run defense, really turn him and McDonald loose. But probably going to be Reese. And just like the other two, now you have guys where you don't have so many holes at spots where you're not drafting Reese just to fill, oh my gosh, we need a player right here. You could really use his skill sets where you think he's best because at least you have viable options at edge and at linebacker. So not so much at pick two. I do wonder, because I've gotten the question, I'm sure you have too, hey, if someone like Caleb Downs is there at pick 10, pick 11, pick 12, would you trade up for him? I think getting Minka Fitzpatrick makes that much less likely because I think that's just, and Minka's not just a 1 year deal. You're hoping he's here for 2 or 3 years. And I think that Minka was a decent pro comp for Caleb Downs. So I don't think you trade up within the top 15 to take a player who has kind of a redundant skill set of a guy who just gave a $40 million contract. And now they're not pigeonholed into taking a guard with one of their first 4 picks, which signing Parham kind of prevented them from. So those are the kind of the major takeaways. And I think wide receiver, like they're going to have to take a wide receiver with one of their first 4 picks, which is fine. Like you can go into the draft needing some stuff. Like they had 4 top 50 picks. It was a rebuilding roster. Like they were going to enter the draft with a hole or two, right? I still would call up Juwan Jennings if I'm them to really give you ultimate flexibility, but not so much at 2. Caleb Downs maybe less likely, maybe Vega a little bit less of a need, but wide receiver becomes probably the single biggest need, I would imagine, heading into the draft, where at 16 or 33, I think is a prime spot to come away with a receiver.
For sure. And like the top or the 4 picks in the top 44, it's fun, it's exciting, right? We're going to be doing all these different mock drafts and stuff like that. But I think one thing that we have to keep in mind, really every Jets fan needs to keep in mind, is that in 2027 with the 3 ones and the second rounder, That's 4 new play. I envision all those guys starting on this team as well.
Yeah.
So I really, I always kind of looked at the 2026 and the 2027 offseason as one like
Mhm.
massive, okay, it's just step one and step two in the plan of trying to get back to the playoffs. And you're never going to rebuild a 3-win team in one swoop with one offseason and have everything figured out and all of a sudden have no team needs and go on this massive playoff run. I mean, I hope I'm wrong and I hope we're back in the playoffs, but I think we did a lot realistically to get better this offseason so far through free agency. These new 4 picks are going to come in, and I'm going to assume, unless we take a quarterback, they're all going to start and they're all going to be, impactful system fits, culture guys that are bought into Glenn and whatnot, which is really cool. Now, one name that has been popping up a ton at spot number 2. It's not Reef. It's not Reese. It's not Bain. Not Bailey. It's really popping up since the combine. It's Sonny Styles. Now we're switching over to the 3-4 base style. It seems like Demario is obviously going to play. Sherwood's on the
Mhm.
big contract. If you're thinking 2 inside line, Sherwood and Davis starting, do you see a world where the Jets could actually draft a Sonny Styles, or are you thinking, you know what, if Sherwood's traded, then it becomes a lot more realistic? But as of right now, it's probably going to be one of these outside linebackers instead.
Yeah, probably one of the outside linebackers, but I think if they were to take a player who's not one of the outside linebackers, Styles would be the next guy up. I think he would be one of, he'd be in the top 4, like in or 5 in betting odds of guys who could realistically go at 2. Now I think something you have to consider is you do look at somebody like Devin Lloyd, who's 26 years old, who comes off of an all-pro season, and he could be had for 15 million, where if that's an edge rusher, he's making 35 million. So there's always that positional value, the financial commitment component to it. But Sonny Styles, I mean, you could argue is the best player in the draft. Like there's really, he is kind of the Caleb Downs profile at linebacker, but he's just a little bit less experienced. But unlike Downs, he has excellent size and athletic profile for the position. He has a historic size and athletic profile for the position. And although off-ball linebacker is not a premium position, I think that a linebacker who can cover like he can is a very scarce skill set. There's like 3 of these dudes in the entire league. So I think he'd be a force multiplier for your coverage unit. He's super smart. Like his route recognition, his ability to kind of stay in between 2 guys in zone and like cover 2 dudes at once. He has the tools and the traits to be a really good blitzer. He could tackle outside of his frame. So there's really no limitations to Sonny Styles. It just comes down to if one of the edge rushers hit, it's like 2.5 times the value in terms of how these guys get paid. But yeah, man, I wouldn't complain about Sonny Styles on my team, and Jamie and Sherwood having 1 year left of guaranteed money on his deal wouldn't really factor into this pick too much, to be honest. If they love Styles and they think he's Fred Warner, you take him and you call up Robert Saleh and say, hey, you can have, Jamie and Sherwood for a used Android charger or whatever. We'll split the money and we'll call it good, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I guess the major pushback with Styles too is ultimately, no matter how good you think the guy is, there's always going to be the criticism of, okay, off-ball linebacker at spot number 2, positional value, plus it's not a massive need right now for the Jets. Again,
Mhm.
if Sherwood's traded, okay, now that aspect is eliminated and he would come in and fill a big need. But really, with Sherwood and Davis still being on the roster, these guys are going to play. It's just hard to kind of picture where Sonny Styles would fit in there. Now Reese Bailey, I think this time of the year, it's like it's always kind of viewed like if you maybe you have a preference, right? If you like one guy,
Yeah.
I think certain like I'll text my buddies and stuff like, oh, I prefer Reese. And they're like, well, why do you hate Bailey? Why do you hate man? I'm like, no, I don't hate any of
Yeah.
these guys. Like I think
Pick
they're
a
all great.
side.
Yeah, I just prefer Reese, like I could say TJ Watt and Miles Garrett are very good. Micah Parsons is very good, but I prefer Miles Garrett, right? So at spot number 2, it does kind of feel like it's going to be Reese. That would just be my guess.
Mhm.
But if it was up to you, who are you leaning March 14th, March 15th here?
So, well, the people who are watching this who also are subscribed to me know that I throw the curveball in here. They're probably sick of me saying it. Think I'm on his payroll. My preference is still Ruben Bain. My preference has been Ruben Bain for a few months. I saw him dominate the college football playoff. I went back and watched 5 more of his games, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good. People can post pass rush win rate stats and his arm length until they're blue in the face, and I'm good. Ruben Bain is, and I think he's. I'm not so sure that it's like a dyed in the wool 3-4 where every single snap we're going to have a nose tackle and two 5 techs and stand up. When you watch any single Jets game, you're going to see an edge, a D tackle, 2 linebackers, 2 boundary corners, a nickel, and 2 safeties. On any given snap, that's what you're going to see. Like even Kingsley, is he a true outside line? No, they just needed an edge. So it's me, Ruben Bain, who is going to be a math changer for you and allow you to live in nickel because of the way he plays the run. I believe in the pass rush upside. Speed to power is king. He can threaten the outside shoulder. He's got enough lateral agility to when you overset, he can make you pay. He can go through your chest. The production is there. He's young enough. I think Ruben Bain is just a complete defensive lineman. You can kick him inside on pass rushing situations. So that would be my preference. Now, if it's between Bailey and Reese, I would probably lean Reese, but I can understand the argument for any three. Like Bailey has what no one else has in that objectively he has the production because there's not really an opinion. Like here's what I did. I got the pressures, I got the hits, I got the sacks. Anything that measures how you get after the quarterback, Bailey was phenomenal at it. And he was pretty good at Stanford the previous year. I would lean Reese because he is 2 years younger than Bailey. So I know you're doing the projection and the imagination part of it, which I get why people are hesitant. But I talked to my guy Joe Blewett, and we always talk about Reese, where it's like, man, can you imagine if he went back to Ohio State and Matt Patricia said, start eating Uncrustables, I want you to weigh 255 pounds. We're going to play you at edge for 2 years. Dude, we'd be talking about like a Will Anderson level prospect where he'd probably be the first guy off the board, right? I don't think it's that hard to imagine. And I do think I think his floor is a bit higher than maybe some of his skeptics give him credit for, just because I think he's going to come in so good as a run defender. Like the power he plays with at 240 pounds is crazy. He could set in a movable edge. He'll stand up pulling guards. He's elite in space. That's the thing about Bain. If you want to drop him into coverage, he can't really do that. Where obviously Reese can do that if teams want to match a punt against you and get weird. He can flip his hips and carry a tight end up the seam. There's just no athletic limitations with Reese, and he's so young. And I think people who see the concept of Micah Parsons, you don't want to just throw around that comp willy-nilly, but if you see the concept of Micah Parsons with Harville Reese, I don't think you're crazy. And I think the Jets are going to be tempted to chase that ceiling. And I wouldn't hate it if they did, although my preference would be probably Bain 1, Reese 2, then honestly Sonny Styles, and then Bailey, if I were to put it in 1 through 4.
Got you. Yeah, and it's funny because you're doing these different mock drafts and you're kind of going through. I don't know if you've done a full first round, like where you're picking for other teams too, but there's some picks, man, where like you get to it. I know for me, Denver at what 30 or 29, wherever, I think it's pick 30. It's just like I hate that pick. I just don't like that pick at all. There's a couple picks in the first round that are like that. Where you're like you're really hoping
16
that,
is kind of like that, man. If Lemon
really,
Lemon is gone, 16 is kind of weird.
I don't see. What I was gonna say was I feel like with both 2 and 16, we're looking at like 4 to 5 players that I'd be cool with. Like
Okay,
you're making the case for Bain, you're making Sonny Styles, Reese, Bailey, all these different guys. And then coming back at 16, it's kind of like, okay, I'm cool going wide receiver. I'm honestly cool going corner. I know that doesn't sit well with a lot of people, but I mean, if Jermon McCoy's there, I'm
bringing up Jermon McCoy.
dude, I love Jermon McCoy, and I feel like that would be kind of the definition of just BPA.
Mm-hmm.
If the Jets walk away night 1 of the draft and they draft Vega at 16. I don't know really what the plan would be there. I mean, maybe move Tippmann back to center. Myers becomes a depth piece, and then you roll with Vega there. But that one feels a little unlikely. But I mean, to me, whether it's at pick 2 or pick 16, I feel like the Jets are going to come away with 2 great players, and we're not in one of those positions where, I'm hoping that 1 or 2 players are there, or else we're screwed. It's like we still, despite the free agency acquisitions, we still have a lot of holes. We can use a lot of talent,
Yeah.
and I feel like specifically for this class, there's a I would say it's deep in the positions that we need with, wide receiver, um, linebacker. I would say that you can
Mhm.
get a quality linebacker in round 2 potentially. So there's going to be options, and I think that's really favorable for the Jets.
Yeah, and I think the point you made is a good one earlier when you said how you're kind of viewing the next 2 off seasons basically as one collective off season, and that's why to me I don't freak out as like, oh, who's going to be at this position, who's going to be at this hole. Like if they don't get to every single part this year, and like there's a fourth round rookie starting at a spot that okay, it happens, and then you get to it next year. Now if they do end up where they're really high on Ty Simpson or whatever, and they're going to have a rookie quarterback playing, then that's different because you want to make sure that okay, now you make sure you have the wide receiver too, make sure you have everything squared away for the rookie. But if Geno Smith like doesn't have the I don't know the optimal like third receiver this year because the best player was like a guard or a safety, like I'm not really sweating it. So I think that's why the Jets can just sit back and really be as BPA as they've ever been. There's been off seasons with the all in years where it's like, oh man, we got to get this player to fill this last missing piece. And obviously that never ages to be the case anyway. So they could just sit back and what they really need is elite talent. Because the Jets, honestly, it sounds insane to say it, but they don't have too many glaring holes. Like they've done a good enough job in free agency where they have viable bodies at most spots. But what they don't have is elite players. Like Garrett Wilson is probably the only player on this roster that is going to keep a coordinator up at night on either side of the ball. So that's where they got to change it. And I think at pick 2, that's where you got to get one of those dudes on defense. Pick 16, I don't know, man. I'm going to share your thoughts on pick 16 because I think that if Tate and Lemon are gone, I think that the tier of receivers from 16 to 33, like you could probably get a similarly talented receiver at 33, which is why I think pick 16, like if they want to go Vega and just complete the offensive line, Parham can play center. I wouldn't want to move Titman. I like Titman at guard, or even a guy if they want to take Dylan Thieneman to get that true post
Yeah,
safety skill set.
I saw
Like
your
I
video
would be
on
mad at it.
Thielen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it'd be interesting because I don't know what they're going to do with Minka. Like, it seems he said he's going to be playing more like slot, kind of what Brian Branch did. So I guess it depends on that.
yeah. I mean, but it speaks to the point, right? We can go in a bunch
Mm.
of different directions, but I mean, even if we go with a wide receiver that maybe isn't one of the consensus big 3, or maybe those 3 guys are gone. I mean, if we walk away from the draft and we pick Omar Cooper, I'm a personally, I'm a big KC Concepcion guy.
Me too.
Like, are we really like going to sleep on night 1 pissed? Are we fuming that we drafted KC at 16 and
No.
we reached, but it's not a reach at 21, for the Steelers, or
Yeah,
like
it's
for
funny
me,
how
it's
that
just
works.
yeah. So I don't know, man. I think we're in a really good position. We're in a favorable spot. And yeah, dude, I really can't wait for the draft.
Yeah, man, I like both those 2 receivers. To me, would not be reaches at 16. I think KC Concepcion, like that quarterback he had, that quarterback he back play he had was so atrocious, man. I know he left some meat on the bone himself with drops, but he's so explosive. He reminds me of Brandon Cooks coming out of college. Omar Cooper Jr. I think is one of the most well-rounded receivers. I love his yak ability, although that scares us after Corley, but obviously he's much more of a complete prospect. And then if you do, I think that's the best thing they could do if talent is equal, game wrecking defensive player at 2, and then a really high end wide receiver 2, or you really honestly hope it's like a 1A, 1B to Garrett at pick 16. So talent being equal, that's the way. Like if Mekhi Lemon falls to 16, I don't care that he's giving hungry eyes to people interviewing with the combine or whatever. Like I would take Mekhi Lemon on my team any day.
Definitely, man. I mean, there's the saying, what is it? It's good teams allow good players to fall to them,
Yeah.
and that's it. I mean, like you have like kind of a handful of teams every year that they just kind of sit in the back end of the first round. They wait to see who falls, and they just pick them. Like the Eagles are like notorious for that. Everyone's saying
Ravens.
every year,
Yeah.
yeah, Baltimore, Buffalo, but you feel like they kind of operate a little kind of separately. Like they're in their own type of lane, but Philly specifically, man, like I feel like it's like a trending hashtag every draft. Like did Howie do it again? Like he's walking away with just some stud SEC player that fell from like, for like a minor injury or something. But Kevin, dude, I appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much for hopping in.
Anytime. Go Jets.
Yeah, for everybody watching, of course, you guys know him, but if not, link is down below in the description box. Buffalo Jets fan. And yeah, as always, go Jets.